Everybody ready? Good morning. Lieutenant Governor Reynolds is on her way to Washington, D.C. this morning for the installation of the Dr. Norman E. Borlaug statue at the U.S. Capitol's Statutory Hall. I will depart from Des Moines later this morning to join her for this very historic celebration. However, there are some specific areas that I'd like to address regarding state employee settlements. First, I was troubled to learn of reports of confidentiality agreements being used within state employee settlements. This ill-advised clause in a settlement is contrary to the priority of this administration to be open and transparent. It is unacceptable. Iowans expect more from government. Iowans deserve better. Second, employees were not terminated or targeted during reorganization based on political affiliation. Department directors did an objective review of their respective agencies to determine how to best serve the taxpayers in the most cost-effective way possible. Political considerations were never considered. Today, I have signed Executive Order 85 to address the concerns that Lieutenant Governor Reynolds and I have regarding accountability, openness, and transparency relating to employee settlements. Executive Order 85 will do the following. Number one, to ensure increased accountability, no executive branch agency, board, commission, or officer shall enter into a settlement without the review of the Attorney General's office and the approval of the department, the Director of the Department of Management, the Director of the Department of Administrative Services, and the head of the agency involved in the matter. If the institution is governed by the Board of Regents, the review of the Attorney General's office is required. In addition, the approval of the Executive Director of the Board of Regents and the head of the institution involved is required. Number two, to guarantee openness, no personnel settlement shall be confidential. Confidentiality provisions that prevent disclosure of agreements are wrong. And I'm deeply disappointed that they were ever considered, let alone used. Number three, to maintain and advance our steadfast commitment to transparency in government. Executive Order 85 requires all settlements be posted online in a location easily accessible to the public. This action to give the taxpayers the opportunity to view all settlements from the time that this administration took office and into the future on an easily accessible website is unprecedented. This morning, you will be able to access these records at www.das.iowa.gov. The executive order applies only to the executive branch, but we would welcome the other two branches of government to consider participating. As you know, I asked David Roeder, Matt Hinch, and Brenna Finley to comprehensively review the agreements. I'd ask David to step to the podium and present the staff's fact findings. David?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. Matt, Brenna, and I began reviewing the facts on Monday, March 17th. We met with the with the Department of Administrative Services Director, Mike Carroll, and Paul Carlson, and spoke with former DAS legal counsel, Ryan Lamb, and interim director of the Iowa Department of Public Health, Garrett Claybaugh, about the facts of the settlements. Matt, Brenna, and I were in regular contact with the Attorney General's office throughout the review process. We were able to gather the following information. First, regarding just the Department of Administrative Services. A unit within the Department of Administrative Services was reorganized. The employees from within the unit grieved and went before the Public Employee Relations Board. During the grievance process, a mediator worked with the employee and the employer to come to a settlement acceptable to both parties. DAS entered into a confidentiality agreements without consulting the Department of Management or the governor's office. This is unacceptable. If they would have consulted with either office, the idea would have been rejected. Speaking about all the other settlements outside of the Department of Administrative Services, it is unclear whether the employer or the employee requested confidentiality. Regardless, we do not believe either side should be able to request confidentiality. 321 settlements have been agreed to by the state and the employees since January 14, 2011, the first day the governor took office. 24 included confidentiality agreements. That is 24 too many. We determined that the settlements with confidentiality agreements were used across 12 agencies. The agencies included the Department of Administrative Services, the Department of Human Services, Department of Inspections and Appeals, Civil Rights Commission, Iowa Workforce Development, Department of Transportation, Alcoholic Beverages Division, Department of Corrections, Iowa Department of Public Health, Iowa Veterans Home, Department of Education, and the Department of Natural Resources. We presented the facts we found from our review to the governor on Friday, March 21st at approximately 2 p.m.
David, thank you very much. I believe it's important to note that some of the 321 settlements had nothing to do with employee termination. Some of the settlements had to do with employee performance. Unfortunately, Iowa's law prevents us from disclosing certain personnel issues that contributed to an employee's departure. In the interest of increased transparency, I believe legislation should be passed to allow for the details surrounding these settlements to also be made public. The citizens of Iowa deserve to know exactly why an employee of the state was terminated. I'd be glad to respond to any questions you all might have. Yes, sir.
You support having the state auditor do a review of this to see if any violation in terms of state spending or anything like that? Would you also support having
Well, wait a minute. Let me answer that first, okay? My chief of staff has already talked to the auditor's office, and the auditor's office is going to include in all of their future audits a question about settlements, about confidentiality in settlements. And first of all, this executive order will prohibit it and prevent it from happening in the future. And these are issues that also we bring up at our meetings with department heads, our monthly review sessions that we have, progress review sessions. We ask them about any issues that get brought up in audit. So I think the auditor's office is adequately going to be able to handle this situation.
So,
by the way, I would also say the state auditor's office and the other elected officials are not directly affected by this executive order, but we've encouraged them to consider following the same procedures that we are requiring for the other state agencies.
would you support having the independent prosecutor look at this and see if any Iowa laws were violated?
First of all, the Attorney General's office has been actively involved in this, and we want to make sure that there are no violation of the laws, but we're going beyond that. We're going beyond that to basically make it clear. There was an Attorney General's opinion, I think, issued back in about 2012 that addressed this issue of confidentiality agreements. We want to make sure by this executive order that there are never going to be any confidentiality agreements in the executive branch of state government.
Do you have any indication that there was any violation of Iowa law?
I have no indication there's any violation of Iowa law. I do respect the fact that we have to abide by collective bargaining agreements, and that these things were settled through the mediation process through the PER board, and those meetings of mediators where they meet with the employer or the employee, that those sessions are, I understand, confidential. I like to have things as open as possible. I think the public deserves to know all the facts.
Who described the 24 other settlements and the 12 other agencies? Were those all employee settlements, or can you classify those? And can you also make those the other 18 that we haven't seen public?
All of the agreements are online, or will be online. I'm not sure, Jason, what's the first part of your question? I'm sorry.
Can you describe the other settlements that had confidentiality clauses? There are 24 in all.
Yeah, they're for your own edification. They're online.
They're all online. All of this, first of all, we are going the whole extra mile. All of this is going to be online. Now, the Attorney General's office is going to review to determine if there are personnel items that have to be redacted. We're going to put it all online, and if there's redactions, it's going to be those things that the Attorney General's office determined by law that we had to redact.
Why do you think you were kept in the dark on?
Well, first of all, state government is a big operation, and each department and agency is given the authority to make personnel decisions. The thing that troubles me is that they agreed to these confidentiality agreements because that goes contrary to this administration's commitment to openness and to transparency in all aspects of government.
But it was 12/8, not just an isolated.
That's right. That's why I did the executive order. I wanted to make it abundantly clear by my executive order, it's illegal. And if this ever happens again, they're going to be heads rolling.
Are there any heads that are going to be rolling as a result of this?
Well, I think a mistake was made, and I had a very long discussion with Mike Carroll about the mistake that he made. I understand that what he did in reorganization state government was appropriate, and that it's saving $720,000 a year. But reaching a settlement that had a confidentiality agreement was wrong and contrary to the policies of this administration. He's assured me it will never happen again.
Have state employees been fired because they're Democrats?
No, absolutely not. Your paper published the fact that the people that were part of this reorganization were independents and Republicans as well as Democrats. It had nothing to do with politics.
Do you believe that Mike Carroll was advising the department confidentiality?
No.
Does this mean that there's 12, whatever you said, 12 different agencies? Does that mean the heads of all 12 of these agencies knew this, that these settlements existed?
No, they dealt with their own individual agency. Each department head has a responsibility to oversee personnel in their agency. And each department head, and each of these are individual circumstances. And they may have dismissed somebody because they were incompetent, or because they were guilty of sexual abuse, or because they violated somebody's civil right, whatever the reason might be. The individual who is terminated, and there's a chart that shows how many of these, and there are many grievances that are filed. Actually, I think, how many, David?
But, Governor, there's about 2,300 that have been filed since the governor's taken office. It works out to a little over 700 a year, and or about 60 a month. Now the settlements of all the grievances, there's only about 14 that result in a settlement, and of those with
14%.
14%. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So you have a number of people that are dismissed or disciplined, and many of those people file grievances. You heard the number of grievances. Only 14% of them actually amount to settlements. And of the ones that actually were a confidentiality agreement was part of that settlement, it was less than 1% of all of the grievances applied. But there shouldn't be any. That's the point I'm making. There shouldn't be any. We ought to be committed to total openness and transparency, and the public has a right to know, and they have the right to know the good and the bad of what's going on in state government. There's a lot of good things, and there's a lot of good employees. A lot of people are doing a great job. Once in a while, we have somebody that isn't, or because of the need to reorganize and reduce the size and cost of government, changes are made. And obviously, when people lose their jobs or are disciplined in some way, they have right to file grievances.
Governor, did 12 agencies individually come up with the idea of these confidentiality clauses, or was somebody advising more than one?
This is being done and has been done in previous administrations and is done in the private sector all the time. But this is state government, and this administration is committed to openness and transparency, and we believe it has no place. And by the way, as my understanding, these confidentiality clauses vary from one agreement to another. They're not all the same.
So, Governor, why did you found that Mike Carroll and not all the others?
Well, because this is the situation that was written about in the paper, and I wanted to know all the facts, and I wanted to have, and because, frankly, there were more in that agency than there were in others.
Governor, can you say where the money came from these agencies?
It come out of their budgets.
And so it's something cut through.
Well, let me explain it again. Mike Carroll reorganized the department and saved $720,000 a year. The settlements were like $280,000. So, and first of all, the $720,000 would be annually every year into the future. So for a one-time cost of $280,000, he saved $720,000. So he thought he'd done a really good job. The point that I made to him was, I'm not second guessing your decision to reorganize and make your department more efficient. What I think is wrong was when you agreed to a confidentiality, which then opened you to these political accusations. And that should never have happened, and it has no place in state government.
Governor, will your office propose a bill to open up some of these, create these firm agreements? Talked about, will you like to propose legislation on that, to make it more open?
Yes.
And that will be this session?
No, it's too late this session. As you know, we've gone past the deadlines and all of that, but we also have a Public Information Board, and I believe the Public Information Board is also going to be reviewing this and possibly making a recommendation on this in the future as well.
The cost of 280,000, what was the cost of all 20? You know how much the settlement is?
It should be on your handout.
Does Teresa Wheeler have your support as manager of the Iowa Workforce Development Agency, or are you troubled by the fact that she's asked judges to essentially give tip sheets to businesses and how to win their cases to the agency?
Well, first of all, I have great confidence in Teresa Wheeler. I think she's an outstanding administrator. I think she's very fair. And it's my understanding this information, so-called tip sheets, are available to both the claimants and to the employers, and that all of the accusations that have been made against her, she answered in a letter to the Department of Labor. I would also point out the Department of Labor recently did an inspection and was very complimentary of the improvements that she's made in that agency, despite the fact that there's been significant federal cuts to workforce development. They've reduced the backlog from, in Iowa was 47th, and we're now 12th. So she's made, and not only that, she's taken on a lot of additional responsibility, including our Skilled Iowa Initiative, which we worked with Bill Knapp on initiating, and Bill Knapp and others have helped raise private money so that Iowa workers that don't have adequate skills can do the National Career Readiness Certificate, and we've got employers that are signing up to be skilled Iowa employers, and we have communities that are competing for that. She also is actively involved with our Home-Based Iowa initiative as well. So I think she's an outstanding administrator. I think it's very unfair. I think these are partisan political attacks, and I think she's answered every one of them and answered them very satisfactorily, and I'm very proud that she is one of our outstanding department heads.
You're is it appropriate for a judge to tell either side?
No,
how to
no, and she
pursue their
didn't.
case?
She,
What are these tip sheets?
this is the same kind of stuff that the Department of Revenue gives to taxpayers. In other words, how you can comply with the law, how you can do things right, how you can do things well. It's advice on how you can be successful. And it's and the information is available on their website to everyone, to the employee that's making a claim and also to the employer. So I think it's very fair and very even-handed.
Should there be an independent person who's a buffer between the department director and the administrative law judges?
Well, first of all, she has never second-guessed or tried to change what administrative law judges do. Now, the workers' comp commissioner can do that and has done that, but she has never done that.
But should there be a person there isn't anymore?
There doesn't need to be, and I think that in light of the budget cuts that she's taken on more responsibility, and I think she's handled it in a very fair manner. And I guess, I understand there's people that are no longer employed, sometimes will have complaints or whatever, but I think we've got a very fine department head here who's done an outstanding job, and I think these are very unfair personal attacks against her, and I'm very proud of the job that she's done.
I found a settlement issue. These workers were not dismissed for political reasons. What's a possible motive for a secret settlement?
I don't know what motives are. I just know that it's wrong to have confidentiality agreements, and I believe that the Department of Administrative Services made a mistake in agreeing to these confidentiality agreements, and it will never happen again.
You asked him, when I come up in the conversation, why did you agree? To Director Carroll?
Yes. And he told me he comes from the private sector. These are commonplace in the private sector. They've been used in previous administrations. But I told him, but didn't you know my position? And didn't you know this administration was committed to openness and to accountability? And frankly, he didn't, I guess he was focused on trying to reach a settlement with these people and working that out through the mediation process.
Do you think the creed by the people, for the
Could you
people?
say your name and organization?
I am just a citizen of Iowa and just want to take more interest in what's going
Your
on.
name, sir?
My name is Mike Whitaker. Do you think the creed of by the people, for the people has eroded beyond repair?
No, I believe that what we're doing today is trying to make government more open and accessible, and I'm committed to that. I love this state, and I go to every county every year, and I try to be accessible and open to the people. What really galls me is that when the people are kept in the dark, and as a result of it, they suspect bad things are going on. I don't want bad things to be going on. I want people to know the truth. I want them to know why somebody is dismissed, and I also, if there's a settlement reached, I understand there's two sides to every dispute, and things sometimes have to be worked out through these kind of negotiations. But I also think there needs to be openness and transparency.
I'm considering running for governor as an independent. Do you welcome me to the race?
Anybody is free to do whatever they want to, and certainly you have that right as a citizen. Yes.
Governor, the most of the people whose jobs who were laid off, were they primarily employees who have been reclassified from merit to at-will employees?
No.
Director, can you help people, you're talking about $300,000 or so, can you help people understand how, doesn't that show up in a ledger somewhere? Like, shouldn't that have been detected somewhere for people that are looking at how your account?
Well, it will be now because all of this stuff is going to be on the website and very clear. But first of all, these settlements, the amount of these settlements are public. But now we're going to make it more accessible and more available by having a website, and whenever a settlement is reached, it'll be posted. And we are going back and posting all of them that have occurred during our administration.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay, thank you very much.